Hey, 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 happy Monday, y'all. And welcome to another live episode of FPP Live, a time I connect the three things you need the most in this world: faith, purpose, and profit. Only if you want to live as the highest and best version who God created you to be. And that's whether you're starting or growing revenue in your current business, or if you're ready to level up your corporate career. I need you to understand that God has so much in store for you, and it's going to require you to level up. And so last week, I started a series called When It's Time to Let Go of Plan A. What happens when it's time to let go of Plan A? So, by the way, as you come in, tell me name, tell me where you're from. If you have questions as I share, whether you come in and ask the questions while I'm live or you come back and watch the replay, please, by all means, I'm here for you and I want to serve you. Also, your questions actually fuel what I'm going to teach on next. I always pray over everything I teach you. And so, listen, the thing I think is so interesting is I work with successful women. Sorry, men, I work with men too, but 98% of my clients are women. Is that you get so stuck on plan A, the plan you wrote back in college, probably, or before you started college, the career you thought you were going to get to, the corporate ladder you wanted to climb. And then what happens when God comes and interrupts that plan? So, this is part two of the series. So, the conversation tonight is the power and career interruptions. But before I start part two, let me do a quick review of part one. So, by the way, all parts of this series, this is our foundational Bible verse. It's Philippians 3:13 through 14 that says, I do not count myself to have apprehended. But one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead, I press toward the goal for the prize of the upper call of God in Christ Jesus. I press toward the goal. Some says I press toward the mark. Some versions. And see, God had a goal in His mind. He had a goal in His plan for you. The question is, do you know God's goal for you? Are you doing the work that He created you to do? And by the way, sometimes, not sometimes, every time I know this is true, God doesn't expect you to just live on one level. I say this quote, I've said it over and over. If you listened to my podcast last week, you heard my pastor say this: you live life on levels and we grow through stages. And so there's always more that God has in store for you. So as we started talking about it, part one, which again was last week, by the way, if you missed it, let me just put this is my YouTube channel. You can go back and watch last week's episode again, which was called When It's Time to Let Go of Plan A. So the conversation from last week was, what's your priority? Or as my aunt used to say, or my mom, I keep saying my mom used to say, get your priorities together. So step one was check your focus. Step two was purpose over position. And step three was God's going to hold you responsible. So again, if you missed last week, I want to encourage you to go and watch it, because listen, the way I teach, one builds on the next. And I had so much content last week that I didn't even get through all of it. And so some of it's bleeding over into this week. And I know that there's already a part three because God has already given me more notes. So with that said, our conversation again for this episode is the power in career interruptions. Oh, there's power in it. Now, here I want you to get. There is a Bible verse. So again, I read Philippians 3:13 through 14, Ephesians 3:20, which is one of my favorite. If you watch me, if you're here with me every week, I say this Bible verse probably just about every time I'm here. Now, to him who's able to do it exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. According to the power that works in us. You came here pre-wired. God put power inside of you already. But the thing that's interesting is those of you that are iPhone users, I don't know if this happens with your smartphone, but it seems like when my iPhone, it's time for me to upgrade to my next phone, it seems like either my phone stops keeping charge or my charger no longer works. It's because it's time to upgrade. And the same thing happens with us. Listen, every single night, I'm charging my Apple Watch, and when I don't charge it, it doesn't work. I'm charging my phone. It's sitting right here, so I'm pointing down. I charge my phone every single night because I want it to work. But again, when the phone starts keeping a charge, What that means to me is it's time to go in and exchange my phone for a newer version. And what happens in our lives is God does the same thing according to the power that's in us. If you heard my story a couple episodes ago, I talked about the fact that I worked in the entertainment industry. What I know for sure is I was only operating at 10% of my giftedness. God was up leveling me. I loved my job in entertainment. I didn't understand, but what God was beginning to show me was He was using my gifts for producing and casting at a new level. So, as we're talking about interruptions, I said this last week that the Bible is really a manual for great living, right? So here's a couple of people. Now, mind you, just about every story in the Bible it tells about interruptions, but just to give you some examples, Abraham, God interrupted his life when he told him to leave everything he knew and move to a land that he was going to show him. He didn't even tell him the land and where it was going to be. He said, no, I don't need you to trust me, just follow me. How about Moses, who was comfortable living in the palace? The son of the princess had everything available to him. He was comfortable when God said, you're really not an Egyptian. You're really an Israelite. Interruption. How about Esther? Favorite girl in the Bible. Esther, who also was queen and could have stayed queen. But there came a time when she realized that the king's homeboy, his right hand man, wanted to kill all her people. So she could be silent and let all people die, or she could stand in the gap for her people. The thing that's really interesting with that story is, and her husband didn't know she was a Jew. So to tell her husband that he could have killed her, you think that's not an interruption? Or how about Mary? Jesus' mother? Listen, Mary was engaged to her boo, Joseph, planning their wedding. Gonna have all the 300 people coming to the wedding. I'm exaggerating, I have no idea. But imagine what that's like. You're picking out your wedding dress, you're putting together the guest list, and then an angel appears to you and says, "Oh, Mary, you pregnant, girl." What? Wait a minute. How am I going to tell Joseph I'm pregnant? Interruption. So I need you to understand who you are today is great. But God will always come and interrupt you when there is another level He wants you to pursue. So those of you that have this rumble inside of you that, "Ooh, I know it's time for me to start a business," that's because God has another level of your power He's calling forward. When you feel like there's got to be more to life than this career that I have right now, that's because there is. That's that other level of power God is calling you forward. It's time for you to exchange your current gift model, your current career track, for the upgrade that God has in store for you. So you guys know I have steps for you, right? I do. I always do. So step number one. Since last week I talked about purpose over position and purpose over money. Again, if you missed last week, go back and listen to it. Here's a YouTube channel where you can see all my FPP live episodes. If you missed them live and you can't find them, here on my Facebook page. Listen. So here's number one: principle over priority. Principle over priority. I was talking to one of my good girlfriends, my business bestie. I'm not gonna say her name, even though she gave me permission, because I said, "Ooh, girl, I'm gonna share that next week." That's in alignment with all the stuff that I've been, God pour stuff in, and I write notes, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's the exact thing I'm talking about next week." Now, again, if I say Ephesians 3:20, now to Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or think, according to the power that works in us. So it's bigger than you ask or think. I need you to get priority or principle over priority. So your priority might be to, like for me, I had a whole list priority. I know I'm gonna do this in entertainment, I'm gonna move into this, and I was doing it. I had worked in casting when God began to really rumble, actually started rumbling me when I worked in casting. So I worked at a huge TV network that I still watch. You probably watch it too. Then I moved from there and started working on the number one TV show on Fox. And by the way, I didn't just work on one show, I worked on two number one shows, and a bunch of movies at the same time. In the middle of that and my next career is when God started to rumble this in me. My priority was to continue to climb, to produce on my own instead of working for other people. God began to rumble that up. So here's what I mean. Principle means a comprehensive and fundamental law, doctrine, or assumption, a rule or code of conduct. So, what I had to begin to understand for myself is if I value who God is in my life, if I value His direction, if I value being a woman after God's own heart, that I've got to let go of my priority and go after the principle of being in alignment with God, of submitting to his plan. Remember, the word submit means sub is under, mission is to get under his mission. So I had to let go of my plans like Abraham did, and Mary did, and Esther did, and Moses did, and so many people in the Bible. Shoot, even all the disciples, God called all of them when they were already busy working. They all had to leave with that work to shift and do the work God was calling them into. Come on, somebody. So sometimes your priorities shift, and it could be that you were doing great. Most times, God only calls people that are already successful, doing great. And all of a sudden you feel this rumble, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm doing this great thing. Listen, according to, and I see more of you guys are joining. So by the way, say hello. And if you have questions, please post them. According to psychologist Russ Harris, he says this: it is important to understand that values are not the same as goals. Principles are not the same as priorities. Values are not the same as goals. A value is not something that you can just cross off or achieve. Instead, it's something that you continuously aim to live and move towards. You heard that? But your priority list is stuff you can check off. Your principles are not. And I think this gets so hard because we have these lists we make, and this was me too, by the way. And I couldn't understand, first of all, when God started rumbling up in me to shift, I couldn't understand what God could possibly want me to do because I love my career. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of. How am I going to shift this? Which moves us into number two. It's not going to look like how you planned it. It's not. Right? Hey, D, it's not going to look like how you planned it. So I'm going to give you 5 steps here. Here's our 6 steps, rather. Here's our Bible verse for this. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. God knows your end from your beginning. He knows at your birthday how he's going to use you. Matter of fact, before your parents even conceived you, God already knew. First of all, God already knew you were going to be conceived. And so it never looks like what you think it's going to look like. Think about the examples I just gave you: Abraham, Mary, Esther, Moses. Even, dare I say, if I use Oprah for an example, just popped in my mind. When she got fired from that journalism job. Hello. Now, do you think that that day she knew she was going to have a TV network? So I need you to understand there's always another level. So if you're going to go after it, there was a saying they used to say all the time back in the day: let go and let God. And I used to say, what does that mean? Okay, I'm going to give you 6 steps that will help you understand what that means. Number one, you need to let go of having to be in control. This is why I always say your conviction, your comfort can never coexist, because when you're in control, you feel safe because you know what's happening next. When you've got to lean and trust on God, you don't know what's happening next. Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in the mind of a man or a woman, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. So you can have all the plans, and your plans may not be in alignment with where God is taking your long-term plans. That's why God comes to interrupt you. And again, let me just remind you, Ephesians 3:20, according to the power that works in you. So the reason you feel the rumble is because that's the power in you rumbling up saying, I got something else to do. Got something else for you to do. And you got to let go of control and trust God. Let go of entitlement. Now, this one was hard for me, y'all. Now, what do I mean by that? See, when you start doing well in a career, you feel entitled. And sometimes God is going to make you feel like you're starting all over. And really, if you trust God, you're not. Not by the world standard. So let me tell you what I mean. So when God started to call me out of the entertainment industry, I was entitled because, baby, I got my name was on every list. There was not a club, a red carpet, a premiere I couldn't get in. There were TV shows I worked on and celebrities, things that I could get in. I was entitled. Listen, I started getting offers for jobs. I wasn't applying anymore. Do you know I still get a call? At least, well, I haven't got one in a couple of years. Every year I used to get a call. That's not true. I did get a call last year. I used to get a call to do casting on something because I was so good at it. So when you get to a certain place in your career, you feel entitled to certain things. And when God is rumbling in you to do something different, your ego has got to go. Because ultimately, it's not about you. I'm going to talk to you more about that next week. But that entitlement is you feeling puffed up. And God is not about your ego. He's not about you feeling puffed up. He's not about your title or your career. Remember, I said purpose over position last week. And sometimes that entitlement is because of the position you have. So you feel entitled to certain things. And when God is shifting you, that entitlement has got to go. I remember feeling like I don't even know what to call this thing that I do because I didn't. This is 1993, y'all, when I made my shift. So I had never heard of coaching. I didn't know what to call this thing. So it was hard for me to even talk to people about it. I had to stop talking to people about it because people started talking me out of what I should do. Let go of worry or doubt. So when you're doing something you've never done, you're going to be worried, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I? Listen, especially when you have a lifestyle to maintain. God never wants you to struggle. Oh, I learned this the hard way. Struggle and service should never coexist. So God's not going to let you struggle unless you're not doing it God's way. Why would God love you and want you to struggle? But those are things we worry about. We worry about, oh, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I? 9 times out of 10, the reason it's not working is because you don't have strategy. So when you let go of worry and doubt and you start doing whatever it takes to move it forward, listen, James 1:6 says, but let him ask in faith with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. You know, I see so many people start businesses, and then a few years later, I see them like, what happened to your business? Tossed with the wind. Or they start a business in one arena and then they shift it all together. Now, it's one thing for you to grow in your purpose. I'm not saying that shift is different than you shifting and doing 20 different things in your business. One year you're a sales coach, next year you're a marketing coach, next year you're an image consultant, next year you're a career coach. Girl, bye, stop. What are you doing? You're being tossed by the wind. You've got to be clear and uncompromising and get under God's direction. The thing I love about when you read these stories of people in the Bible, Abraham, Moses, these examples I gave you, Peter, or any disciple for that matter, Mary, Esther, my favorite girl. First thing all of them did was pray or go seek God. They didn't say, some of their stories don't say pray, but they go and seek God. They have conversations with God. And I think many times that's a missing piece. The thing that's interesting is when I was writing this out, what came in my mind, again, this number 2 is reminding yourself that it's not going to look like how you planned it. Now, there's a joke. Now, some of you guys may have heard of a man that pretty much gets drowned in the sea and he prays, Lord, please come save me. So a man comes by in a helicopter and he goes, okay, come on. And come on, you know, I'm here to save you. And he goes, oh, no, God is going to come save me. Then somebody comes by in a motorboat and he's like, oh, hop on, you know, let me help you. And he's like, oh, no, God is going to come save me. And then what's the third one? The third one is, I can't remember, it's a helicopter, a motorboat, and something else. Let me see. I tried to write it out. Anyway, the point is this, a rowboat. The point is this, the man drowns. And then he gets to obviously go see God. And he said, God, what happened? And God said, well, I sent a rowboat, a motorboat, and a helicopter. It's not going to look like how you think it's going to look. That's why trusting God and having a relationship with God is so important. And for those of you that are saying, Nicole, that's great, but I don't know how to do this. Part of that is number 4, you got to let go of comfort. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. See, when you've gotten to a level in your career and you know exactly how you got there, when God has called you to do something different, listen, another of my favorite quotes, the tools you use on this level are not sufficient for your next. It's going to require new tools, a different way to do it, and God's going to pull you out of comfort because he wants to see if you trust him. So those of you saying, Nicole, but I need support, I need help, you're the exact reason I created my High Calling High T, which is coming up. I'm going to play a commercial to tell you more about it. I'll come back and I'll share with you step 5 and 6 of it's not going to look like how you think it's going to look. All right, I'll be back. Hey, successful woman, can I ask you a question? Is it time for your next level? Are you feeling stuck, complete, or ready? Now, when I say stuck, I'm talking about feeling stuck in a job that just no longer fits, that's just no longer big enough for your gift. Or maybe you feel complete with your current level of success and you desire more, but maybe you feel guilty for wanting more because you've gotten to the place in your career that you've always wanted and you're successful. Maybe you're just ready. You're ready for your next. You know it's time for you to transition into your next best career move or to start a business alongside your 9 to 5. So listen, if you're feeling stuck, complete, or ready, it simply means it's time for you to level up. And that's why I'm inviting you to join me for the High Calling High Tea. It's an afternoon of networking, of me giving you the step-by-step methodology you need to go after what's next for you. Plus, I'm gifting you with my Plan B playbook so that you can do the introspective work that will couple with the methodology I'm going to give you in the room. So listen, why should you be in the room? Why should you join? Can I keep it real? See, the biggest issue I see that gets in the way of successful women, I should say successful, powerful women like you, is you understanding that what got you here won't get you there. See, your bio, your resume is great, but that version of you is done. It's complete. And I'm excited to support you and who you have not yet become at the High Calling High Tea. April 1st, it's a Saturday from 2 to 6 p.m. I'm excited to, one, give you the methodology you need to move your high calling forward. I call it high calling because of Philippians 3:13 and 14. Is where I got that high calling from. If I read it to you again, I do not count myself to have apprehended. But one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead, I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call, the high calling of God and Christ Jesus. So my goal is to give you the methodology you need to move forward, coupled with a networking. We're going to have networking. And by the way, I'm keeping the room small so I can really coach you. You'll have a panel of successful women sharing how they went after their next level, plus so much more. You get like I said, my Plan B playbook. Those of you that want to upgrade to VIP, you get to take an assessment, you get a coaching call with me. So go to highcallinghightea.com. If you know now's your time, I look forward to supporting you here in the DMV on April 1st from 2 to 6 p.m. All right. And listen, only come in the room if you're ready to move forward. Only come and claim your seat if you know now is your time and you need support. Because otherwise, I want to make sure we save the seat for women that will use the methodology that I'm going to give them that afternoon to move it forward. All right. So with that said, let's continue with our conversation as we wrap up. I'm always here, committed to be here 30 minutes. So by the way, those of you that are here with me live, if you have questions, please feel free to post, whether it's questions from what I shared or if you have questions about the event, either way. So again, let me go back and give you a review. Okay. So the power in career interruptions. Okay. Again, based on Ephesians 3:20 about the power that works in you. Okay. So step 1 is really principle over priority. And then step 2 is it's not going to look like how you think it's going to look. And then I'm giving you 6 steps under that. So 1 is you've got to let go of control. 2 is you've got to let go of entitlement. 3 is let go of worry or doubt. And then 4 is you've got to let go of comfort. Listen, when God is calling you to do something, it's going to be outside your comfort zone. Listen, it's outside your comfort zone where you grow. And matter of fact, comfort zones is where I've seen so many people's purpose die. So the last 2 steps here, can you explain what level of entrepreneur should attend the event? Yes, D, I'll explain it in 1 second. So number 5 is trust God to show up and show out. If God is going to do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ever ask or think, you should know that God is going to show up and show out. And you've got to trust him to do it. Because if he's not coming for who you already are, he's going to show up and show out. But the question is, are you willing to do what it takes when he shows up and shows out? Will you take what he's rumbling inside of you or when he puts a coach in front of you? I know for me, I had to hire a coach because I didn't know what to do. And every path I kept praying and every path kept leading to that coach. And she was expensive and I was scared and it wasn't comfortable. But God showed up and showed out because I moved. I know so many people pray about it and pray about it and pray about it. And listen, faith without works is dead. You've got to be about it. And then submit to God's plan. You've got to submit to God's plan, which I talked about a few minutes ago. So to answer your question, D, this is for people that are just starting out, that you're just starting out. And this is what I call alongsiders. So if you've been working on your business and you don't have predictable revenue, it's usually because you don't have the clarity or the strategy you need. Okay. So this is for those of you that are still in startup mode and you're not in six figures in your business, or maybe you made six figures once, but it's not predictable yet. Or you are in a corporate career or any kind of 9 to 5, and you're at an executive level and you know there's more for you. What that means is there's a next best career move. And either way, it's time for your pivot. So that afternoon, I'm giving you the steps to go after that pivot you need to make to start or grow your business or to move into that next best career. All right. So, with that said, those are our steps. And really, it's the power in career interruptions. See, God is coming to power up that next level in you. The question is, will you do the work to power up? Are you going to stay in complacent? Are you going to listen? I'm allergic to average. So listen, even though you might be successful, when you get to a place that is your norm, yeah, that's average for you now. When God has extraordinary waiting for you, He has a breathtaking future available to you, but you've got to do the work to go and get it. And if you know now's your time, then I look forward to supporting you at the High Calling High Tea. I'll put that up one more time. highcallinghightea.com. Claim your seat, get in the room so that you can begin to get the steps you need to make your pivot now. All right. So, with that said, y'all, it's always my honor and privilege to be here. We'll continue in this series even more next week. I have so much, and I can't even tell you how many steps we're gonna have because sometimes I say steps and then God ends up adding stuff. And so, listen, we'll stay in this series until we've gotten what we need to get out. So do me a favor. Those of you that find value, two favors. One, share the value you got out of today's conversation. Number one. Number two, I want you to share this with others in your network. Why? Because you don't know who else is in your network that's been wanting to start a business or feels stagnant in their business. Their business isn't growing. Your business usually isn't growing because you're using the same tools or you're in comfort. We've got to get you out of that comfort in order for you to level up. Same with your career. If you feel like something's missing, you don't feel fulfilled, you feel like you know there's greater meaning, but you don't know how to go after it. This event is for you. All right. Highcallinghightea.com. You'll learn more on website. All right. So with that said, y'all, that's it for this episode. I can't wait to pour more into you as we continue our conversation week after week. All right. So with that, I'll see you next week. Have a good one. Thank you for joining us for FPP Live. I'll see y'all next week.